structures and with the new trends, then the new structure is reconstructed. So such kind of cycles will go through such kind of cycles, we will make the muscle growth become larger, and also the strength of the muscle increases. So this is the repetitive training effect of muscles. Of course, the biological process of this muscle training is very, very complicated. So we cannot reproduce such kind of training process in a synthetic materials in a complete same ways. But somehow we can extract some essential parts of this process, I think. Then we try to apply this process to the synthetic materials. Maybe we can mimic this kind of functions. So what is the essential process in such kind of muscle training? From our point of view, we think there are three is important. One is a nutrient supply. So this nutrient supply is to get energy or also get the mass, the substance, to build a new structure and to have the new material to build a new structure. This is necessary. And the second one is structure destructions by mechanical stimuli. So by mechanical stimuli, we destroy the structures. And because of this structure destructions, the new structure will be formed. So this new structure formation is triggered by the structure destruction. So the elements 2 and 3 are strongly connected. And element 3 also strongly connected to element 1. Without nutrient supply, we cannot have the new structure construction. So this 3 is the essential process to build some muscle-like or living tissue-like materials. So how can we do this? So that's the problem, how we can incorporate these 3 elements in a synthetic system, material systems. And so I think the key point is how to have a structure destruction to trigger the structure reconstructions. So to think about this, we had to introduce a very important field called the mechanochemistry. So this field is growing very rapidly. So mechanochemistry, and from the word we can see that it's chemical reactions triggered by mechanical force. So the force and chemical reaction are coupled. And such kind of mechanochemistry has been used recently by a lot of works. For example, like Stephen used at 2013, he used the mechanical force to trigger the cross-linking reactions. And also recently, a colleague in Tokyo Institute of Technology, Professor Otsuka, he used mechanochemistry to make self-healing of his materials. And also Constantino's group used this mechanochemistry to sensing the polymer chain ruptures. So this is a very important field now rapidly growing. So use mechanical force trigger chemical reaction might be used in our systems to build muscle-like materials. However, if you use the conventional mechanical force, there are some difficulties because this mechanical force usually has a very complicated structures. So we are not a chemist to design such kind of mechanical force and incorporate into polymer chains. It's are very tough work. So it cannot be simply done in our groups. And also in use mechanical force, it is not very efficient because one mechanical force can probably trigger one cross-linking reactions, not more. And if we want to remodeling our materials, we need a very, very efficient chemical reactions to very small trigger of force can induce large structure change or remodeling structure very efficiently. So then there's another choice to use mechanochemistry, that is use mechanologicals. And when a polymer chains is stretched, when it is broken under the mechanical force, if the covalent bond breaks in a homolytic ways, then at the broken end of the polymer chains, mechanologicals is generated. There are two mechanologicals generated in the broken end of the chains. So these mechanologicals are chemically very reactive. So it can be used to trigger the chemical reactions. For example, if we stretch our CC carbon chains, and then if the bond cleavage occurs, then we have two mechanologicals here. And these mechanologicals might be used for chemical reactions. Actually, this is well known in chemistry, and this kind of mechanologicals have been used to trigger some small chemical reactions with small molecules, for example, here, and also to reduce the metal salt, for example, to metal particles. So there is a lot of work to use these mechanologicals to trigger chemical reactions. And furthermore, if the polymer chain is ruptured in monomer solutions, as I show here as dots here, these monomers can react with these mechanologicals and then form polymers like this. So this is reported in the early 1950s. So it's a very traditional field to use mechanologicals to form polymers. So because one mechanologicals can initiate polymerization to polymerize monomers to make a polymer chains. And these polymer chains can be 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 of monomers. So it is very, very efficient. So one mechanologicals can induce a new polymer chains or even polymer network. So it's a very efficient chemical reactions. So use such efficient chemical reactions, we can do the structure destruction by mechanical stimuli and also the structural reconstruction triggered by this structure destructions. So that's the idea. So furthermore, because hydrogel is a solid and in macro scale, and it's a liquid or a solution in micro scale. So as a solid, it can transmit the stress very efficiently. And as a liquid, it can load monomers just like a nutrient. And these monomers can react inside the gel, just like a chemical reaction in solutions. So this will make the reaction very efficient. So use hydrogels to introduce mechanological polymerization is should be very efficient a proper system. So yeah, as I already described here, so this hydrogel, because of the solid property and the liquid property, it can satisfy also nutrition supply problems. So imagine if we do the polymerizations of mechanochemical polymerization in the hydrogels, if we stretch the gels, if we have, there's our mechanochemicals, and this mechanochemical might form new polymers, and this new polymer depend on our necessary, this polymer can be added later with various kind of properties. So this will give us new functions just triggered by the mechanical deformations. So this kind of polymer is not necessarily be designed in advance, but can be later, according to the needs, we can add various kind of monomers and to form polymers and to impart the gel with new functions. The idea is good, but it is actually quite challenges if we use, if we want to use the mechanologicals. This is because the mechanochemical generation, that means the fracture of the materials, the fracture of polymer chains. And for common brittle materials, because you're all, many people here is expert in fracture mechanics, you understand this much more better than me, that it is very difficult to control the fractures. The fracture occurs at some pre-existing defects. We do not know where the fracture occurs. And for common brittle materials, once a crack starts to propagate, and then it will propagate catastrophically, and so as a result, all the mechanologicals are only generated at the broken surface of the material. So we cannot control this. So if we cannot control this, that means we cannot use this kind of mechanologicals to remodeling the materials. So this is, I think, why for until now, there's almost no succeed to use mechanologicals to remodeling the materials. Although use mechanologicals to polymerization is well known, but never people cannot use it because the concentration of mechanological is so low, and also the positions cannot be controlled with. So as a result, it's difficult to use. So as an example, for example, in this kind of case in a single network gels becomes very clear. So usually if we deform a single network gels, there's a negligible bond rupture before failures. But once the most shortest chain splits, the long chain nearby also have a stress concentrations, and then all the sample will break at some point, and then the sample is completely failed. And this can be clear you see even for a weakly crossing single network gel. For example, here we use polyacrylamide gels. If you loading, unloading a polyacrylamide gel, you never see hysteresis in these regions. And so that means there's no internal bond rupture or very, very few internal bond rupture before sample failures. So in this case, we cannot use mechanologicals to generate, to do the polymerization or remodeling materials. So maybe you already know the answer. If we use, we need a hydrogel that with controlled mechanological generation in the bulk of gels, and also we need a large amount of mechanologicals that is enough to initiate the polymerizations. And the double network gels can do this. I guess most of the audience maybe already know this double network gels. So let me explain it again, because probably some of them are not familiar with these systems. Double network gels are interpenetrated polymer network gels with a very contrasting network structures. with one network that is usually prepared from a network with pre-structured chains. Usually we can use a polyelectrolyte, for example, in this case, a polyelectrolyte. And this polyelectrolyte network is highly cross-linked with a short chain, but this chain is in relatively pre-structured state. And another network called the second network, it's usually a neutral polymers with a loosely cross-linked and the network, and it has a very relatively high concentration, and the polymer chain in globule, in coiled state. So with such kind of structures, we have a very strong gels. And this kind of strong gels shows a very unique internal fracture mechanisms. And when we loading the gels, like here we are loading the gel, and then the gel show a very high modulus, which is determined by the first hard and brittle network. And if we were unloading the gels, and we will see that we have a strong hysteresis due to the internal fracture of this hard and brittle network. And although in this case, the hard and brittle network fractured into very small clusters, macroscopically, the gel still hold together because the second network can hold the first network. So in this case, we can have a very large deformation of the materials without global failure of the samples. So this kind of materials, because it has a huge amount of internal fractures, so it must have a lot of mechanologicals if the bond cleavage occurs in homolytically. And so if this is true, then we might use this kind of double network gel system to remodeling the materials. And to do this, first we try to confirm that there is mechanologicals in the gels. And we try to use this kind of phantom reactions. And these phantom reactions they use the ions. This ion will react with the mechanologicals and become an oxidized state. And these oxidized ions will react with a dye, and this to make a complex. And this complex will show different color in compare with original color of the dyes. So if we immerse these gels in these phantom reaction solutions, when we stretch the gels, and as the gel will show neckings, and in these necking regions, there's a lot of internal fracture of the first network. And so if we see that this is because if this internal fracture produce the mechanologicals, we can see the reaction, phantom reactions. And this is an example to show that after stretching, this necking part shows a color change. So that's the indication of mechanological generation in these systems. So use this method, we can actually determine the internal fractures, how many chains are unloaded by this kind of reactions. And so because during the sample loading and unloading process, with the increase of loadings, the amount of internal fracture will increase, and this increase will is due to the unloading of the first network chains, and then this hysteresis can be related to the amount of mechanologicals. So then we try to correlate this internal fracture-induced hysteresis and the amount of mechanologicals generated in the gels. And here is the examples to show the single network, first network, second network, and the double network. You can see the first network itself is very, very brittle. So the horizontal axis strain is very small for the sample to fail. And for the second network, it's quite stretchable. You can see it can be stretched to a large deformations. And then here, the third one is a double network gel. You can see a huge hysteresis. But for the two single network gels, either a brittle one or the quite stretchable one, both of them do not show hysteresis apparently in these scales. So then we can correlate the mechanical hysteresis with oxidized ions, and that's equal to the amount of mechanologicals. So you can see even for different chemical structures and of the double network gels, we can find roughly linear correlations between the hysteresis and the amount of mechanologicals. And for single network gels, and it also can show very, very weak some mechanologicals, not absolutely zero, but still we can see something. But it is, in compare with the double network gel, it's almost negligible. So because the mechanical hysteresis can be controlled by changing the strains, and then the mechanical hysteresis and the mechanological is linear related. So that indicates we can control the mechanologicals in the bulk of the DM gels quantitatively. And also, the important thing is that the amount of mechanologicals in the order is in the order of 10 micromole. And 10 micromole from the chemical reaction viewpoint, this amount is enough to cause mechanological polymerizations. And so because of this, so we can think that if we immerse a double network gel in the monomer solutions and then do the stretchings and see if the polymer chain is formed by after stretchings. First, we try use the NIBOM. It is a monomer that this monomer, if form polymer, this polymer is thermosensitive. At low temperature, it can dissolve in water. At high temperature, it will do phase separation. So it is a temperature sensitive one, so we can easily see if this kind of polymerization occurred in our systems. As you can show here that at low temperature, we see the transparent samples, but at high temperature, we see the sample become turbid. This is because this NIBOM polymer is polymerized, and at a high temperature, it becomes water insoluble. So it dehydrates the water and try to aggregate. So we see the sample becomes turbid. So this indicates that polymerization do occurs in our systems. And then chemically, we also can confirm that the monomers, the monomer have a double bond here. So if we do the polymerizations, this double bond will open and form polymers. And this double bond can be measured quantitatively by the near-infrared spectroscopies. So as shown here, so for unstretched sample, when we load the monomers, the double bond, we can see the double bond clearly. After we stretch the sample, wait a while, then the double bond peak completely disappears. So that means all these monomers are polymerized in the gel system. And we found that the polymerization efficiency is quite high. For example, if we load 2 more monomer into the gels and the monomer conversion rate is about 90% of this system. So remember that we have mechanologicals in the order of 10 micromoles. So that means this 10 micromole can polymerize 1.8 more monomers. So that means one mechanologicals on average can polymerize 1.8 to 10 to 5 monomers. So it's a huge amount. So this is really a very high reaction efficiencies. So with this kind of high efficiencies, we can modify, we can check that if the property of the gel can be changed or modified. And again, we use poly bombs. If we cut the gels, and at the cutting regions, there are also mechanologicals formed, and these mechanologicals can be used to initiate NIBOM polymerizations, and this polymerization can change the surface property. For example, at a low temperature, it's hydrophilic, and at high temperature, it becomes hydrophobic to change the contact angle of the gel changes. Also, because this mechanological polymerization is can be controlled in spatial positions. So if we make a mold and then compress the gel, DN gel, then selectively this part can be damaged. And this damaged part can initiate the polymerizations. And as you can see, that, again, that we can selectively polymerize this part by mechanically damage this part. And so, and also the spatial resolution is quite high, as you can see here. Then next, our question is if we can strengthen the materials by such kind of mechanological polymerizations. For the previous examples, we only use the monomers. So what is formed is a linear monomer in the damaged part. So a linear monomer is like a grafted chain. So in this case, it's like a grafted chain. So mechanically, this grafted chain will not strengthen the hydrogels. It only probably can induce phase separation locally, or change the surface property, or the hydrophilicity and hydrophobicity, something like this. But mechanically, this, if without additional interaction, this will not change the mechanical properties. So as the most simple example to change the mechanical properties is we need to add the crosslinkers in addition to the monomers. So with the crosslinker and the monomers, if at the end of the broken chains, if we can form a polymer network, then this polymer network might change the mechanical property of the gels. So in order to do this, in addition to the monomers, for example, in this case, we use the monomer with a binder bond here, and also we use the crosslinker. Here, in order to increase reaction efficiency, we use 3 functional crosslinker. You can see there's 3 vinyl monomers, vinyl bond here, double bond here, and this bond, if all participate in the reactions, it can form networks with 3 connected to 3 chains on the network. And so we started the gel and put in this kind of solutions, and also do the stretching and the polymerization and do the mechanical test in this case. And this is a result. And there are 5 curves. So the first black dotted line is a virgin DN gels. There's no monomer loadings. And also the red dotted line curves is also the virgin DN gels loaded with monomers and the crosslinker. So you can see at the first loadings, we do not see differences. So that means at our loading speed in this case, and the polymer network, new polymer network are not formed yet, or hardly formed. And as a control, if we see the pre-stretched DNA gels, if there's no monomer loading, or only loading with the monomer without chemical crosslinker, we see the curve like here. So there's no effect in the mechanical properties. So just like the second loading of the double network gel is strongly softened with a strong hysteresis. However, if we put the monomer and the crosslinker, we get a tremendous change in the mechanical property as shown here. So this means that there's a new network is formed in these systems, and this new network will strengthen the gels. As you can see, with our proper good condition, experimental monomer conditions and the crossing conditions, we can get very strong gels with a higher yielding stress, and also with a higher fracture stress. So that means they strengthen only with chemical crosslinkers. The amount of chemical crosslinker is extremely important, as you see that the virgin sample has a modulus in of these levels. If we put a very few amount of chemical crosslinker, almost no effect. Only when the chemical crosslinker is increased to a certain level, we see the strengthening effect. And this again shows that the graft chains do not bear load. And also only newly formed network contribute to the modulus increase. This is very clear to show this result. So, and then the people may ask, how long does it take to form the network? Actually, the network formation is quite slow. The polymerization itself is relatively fast. It usually can finish, for a linear chain, it can finish within several seconds, very fast. However, for the cross-linking reactions, it takes a long time. This can be indirectly seen from the mechanical property changes. So when we load the sample and unload the sample in the second times, and we can see that the hysteresis of this area will increases with the times, and it will saturate around 1 hour. So that means the new network formations could be saturated around 1 hour. So it's quite a relatively long time to do this. So by optimizing the conditions recently, we can make it more fast, but at that times, it's relatively slow. So the question is, previously, we only found that one time loading and unloading, then the loaded with the monomer, we can increase the strength. So is it possible to do it repetitively, just like a muscles? So for this, in order to have a repetitive strengthening, we need to form a lot of new networks. So what is the condition to form such a new repetitive strengthening? Just by assumption that, of course, we need a continuous monomer supply, because for first network for the network formations, and the monomer will be consumed. So we need a new monomer to supply to break the new network. And another one is we think that destruction of the nth generation network for the reconstruction of the n+1 generation network. So the new network, the network is ruptured, and then a new one is formed, and this new one might be also ruptured, and for the next network to be formed. So this might be important. Of course, currently we cannot identify which one is the first generation, which one is the second generation, but this must be occurs in the system to get the repetitive strengthenings. So we try to do this with two control experiments. One is just a loading, unloading in the reference state. That means we stretch in water without a monomer supply. Another one, we have the closer system. We preload, soak the gel in monomer solutions, and then stretch and see how long, how many cycles the polymerization will occur. And the third one, we have the open system, so-called open system. In this system, we stretch the gel in monomer solution so that the consumption of the monomer in gels will induce the diffusion of the monomer from outside bath to the gel again. So that will make a continuous supply of the monomers. And we can see that with the open system, we really have a gradual strengthening at a good when the experimental condition is good. I guess Takahiro spent a lot of time to try to optimize and to get this kind of nice condition to show this effect. And for the closer system, we can see that the first cycle, on second cycle and third cycle have some effect. And then also there's no effect because the monomer is all consumed during the loading, unloading, second loading, unloading cycles. So this can also be shown more clearly in the displacement force curves for reference state and no recovery. That means no new network formation. And for the closer system, there are some network formations for the second cycle and very small for third and fourth cycle. But for the open system, we have a very large new network formations for the second cycle, third cycle, and fourth cycle. And so that means the monomer supply is extremely important in this case. And during this kind of process, if we see the closer system, we found that the length of the gel increases, as can be seen that the force of to stretch the gel to the same length becomes starting at a lower stage. So that means the sample, this is due to the sample increase its size. So at the beginning, there's no force to stretch the sample to the predetermined length, but the maximum force increases with the cycles. And this can be more clearly seen in the movies. So we put the gel here. The gel is highly transparent. It's very difficult to see. And it shows neckings. And the baths contain the monomer and crosslinkers. And at the beginning, the gel is so soft, so it cannot lift the load in the first cycles. And if we blow the first, do the first lifting and wait for a certain time, and then we lift it for the second time, you can see that it can lift the load. This is because the gel becomes more robust. So it can lift to less deformable. So you can see the lifting of the gel. And we also can do for the third cycle, as you can see, because the monomer is continuous supply into the gel for the third cycle, the load can be lifted into even higher levels. So this is because this gel and the strength of the gel increases. So from this kind of result, we can see, although the system is very, very simple, you can see we can mimic the muscle trainings and by mechanical stimuli-induced structure destruction and the structural reconstructions in this case. And this kind of mechanism, I think, might be in future used to artificially make some material that shows artificial metabolic reactions. And this kind of gels might have show the time evolution of structure and functions by mechanical stimuli, such as it can increase or change the mechanical properties, or go to the morphogenesis, or change the surface properties, also show the stable responses. For example, at the beginning, we start from DN gel, normal DN gel. We do the mechanical stimuli and add some type of monomer. We can have some new functions. And after that, we can mechanically stimulate this gel again and add another monomers and show new other functions and so on. So by such kind of process, we do not need to program the material in advance. It can be a common DN gels, and this DN gel can evolve to various kinds of things, and it depends on your technique and imagination. You can do a lot of things probably. And here, maybe more audience can have a more idea how to do this, and based on these principles. And for the artificial metabolic materials, I think the next challenge is how to make a deep polymerization, how to introduce a deep polymerization or deep composition mechanisms into the gel systems. Because in the biological systems, there's one direction is polymerization, form the new structures. Another function, important function, is try to remove the old structures and as a waste, to remove this old structure from the systems. But in our gels, in the current case, we do not have such functions. So the polymer chain is broken, and these broken chains can induce a new structure formation, but this broken chain is still there. So that's it's the current limitations. So there's a lot of things we can do in chemistry and also in mechanics to combine this kind of different field. We can have a very, probably very interesting thing, a lot of interesting to do in future. And I think now this time, so I would like to close my talk, and also I would like to thank Takahiro Matsuda and Dr. Nakajima again, and also I would like to thank all the previous and current members of our laboratories. And fortunately, we have a very, very nice and creative student. They have a lot of ideas to do a lot of things. All of this is because they are interested. They have curiosities and are interested into something new. And so this, all this work is due to their effort and talent. So thank you very much. I also would like to thank the funding agencies. We have a lot of fundings from universities and from government. And because of these fundings, we can concentrate in our work. So also, I think Thank them very much. And finally, I want to show this picture because a lot of audience here also participate in this summer school. You can see Herbert here, Constantino here, and Wei Hong here, and also Professor Michael Rubinstein, and in the middle, Zhigang is here, always here. And so we really enjoy the summer schools. So thank you for your attention.
Hey, Jianping, thank you very much. Spectacular. So I made a mistake. In the beginning slides, I forgot to turn on recording. Can you go back to your beginning of your slides? A few slides, we at least record these few slides.
Okay.
Mistake title slide.
How to jump.
This mistake I made, this is the second time I make the same mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
How to jump back. Okay.
Yep. So take your time.
Maybe I need to go through the beginning.
Yeah. So
you can ask a question. I will adjust these ones.
If you put on online forever, at least people know the title, see the title page. I apologize. I apologize to everyone in the audience. Constantino, you think deeply.
Yes. No, I of course I know the work, but I always have some questions.
Yeah, of course. And then see you as well.
Yeah, you can ask questions when I try to.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I have some mistake. My name is Li Wadi from Nanyang Technology University in Singapore. Okay, I just interesting. Thank you very much for your so interesting presentation. Okay, I just have this kind of question. You talk about this kind of increased strength due to mechanical stimulus, right? And you also mentioned this the mechanical stimulus break the chair contribute to new generation polymerization, right? Okay, now my question is that do you think this the mechanical break also contribute to the increase the density of Crosslinker? Okay, why I have this question? To be honest, I also have no idea about this kind of material. For example, usually, can you give us give me advice? How many percentage contribute the strength of hydrogel by Crosslinker or by chain, by polymer chain?
Yes,
usually,
as I mentioned.
Usually, people think about the Crosslinker make a big contribution to the strength of hydrogel, right? But in your presentation, you mentioned the new generation of polymerization due to polymerization of the chain only, polymer chain only, right? Can you say that? You say polymer chain only. This to your previous few slide, right? So now I have this question: how many percentage in general? How many percentage contribute by Crosslinker? How many percentage, roughly, how many percentage contribute by the polymer chain? The second question is that you make this the explanation for this mechanism is assume this kind of stimulus always the positively increase the strength. Do you remember in your first maybe number 5, number 4 slide is the performance also increase, right? Based on the multiple stimuli, right?
Sorry, can I interrupt? Or let's go through the few pages first.
Okay.
My question. Okay, my second question. My second question is that why mechanism? Why reduce the strength? Why you also can say this to increase, like the muscle you mentioned, right? For young people, maybe at training, then the strength increase. But for all the guy, maybe muscle is the another direction, right? So this is why I have these two questions. I'm not sure my two questions is clear for you.
Okay.
Okay. Before you answer that question, can you go through your initial slides at least? Or
yes, slide 11. Slide 11.
Slide 11.
Yes. And also slide.
Okay. So first of all, okay, Zhigang want me to go through my slide, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm sharing the slide, and can you see the slide?
Your title page.
Oh, you want to see the title page?
Yeah.
So can you see the title page now?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's your title page. Maybe first 5 slides just to go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So should I move?
These are the co-workers of these 2 papers are important for this talk. Thank you. Yeah, and next page. All right. Okay, static, dynamic. Yeah, next page. I apologize.
Yeah, this one.
This one.
You see the performance always positive increase, right?
Yeah, maybe you show next page.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Elements, the structure, discussion figures. Yeah, maybe next page. Yeah. Yep. That's great. Yeah, let's record first maybe 10 slides. I think we should be good.
You forgot to record.
Yeah, in the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah, because I got a message in French saying, somebody's recording you.
Yeah.
I made the same mistake before once. This is the second time. So next slide, please. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, one more slide. I think we're done.
Okay. Please.
All right. Okay. Okay, Jian, go ahead.
Okay.
You can so we can ask you turn off unshare your screen. So now you can answer questions. Sorry, Jian.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So about the question about the cross-linkings. First of all, if we only polymerize the linear chains without any cross-linkers, there is no effect on the mechanical strength. So we need to add the cross-linkers. And the amount of cross-linker should above certain levels, as I showed. And so, I think it depends on the combinations of the monomers and the cross-linkers. But certainly we need a certain amount of cross-linker to show the apparent effect above. For example, as I can show the data, extremely important to have the cross-linkers. Can you see this? Yeah, so this is about the effect of cross-linkers on the mechanical properties. Here we measure the modulus. So
can I say your cross-linker is not due to the mechanical stimulus? Can I say that? It's based on your addition.
So it's the cross-linkers we added. So mechanical, yes, mechanical stimuli will black the chain, and the blacking the chain, at the end of the chain we have the mechanologicals to
So means
initiate
you are
new
so means your mechanical stimuli only contribute the polymerization of the chain. Can I say that?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Trigger
great.
the
Okay.
polymerization of the chain,
So
yes.
my next question is for younger people, muscle, if you're training muscle, of course, the strength is supposed to increase. That's one we know, right? For you, older one, maybe no true, right? So, but your model, you assume performance always keep increase in the post direction, right? How to understand this part?
So as I mentioned, that we use some biological concept to try to mimic this effect, but the detailed molecular structures and biological biochemical reaction is completely different. So I cannot answer you why the young generation can do trainings and to increase the muscle strength, but for the senior person, it does not work. That's another story. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. So if you have a questions, please click the handshake button. So I have a long list of people lined up for questions. So the next one is Li Qin Xiao.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Long. Thank you, Prof. Gong, for giving us this very, very interesting, wonderful talk. I really enjoyed. Thank you very much. So before I go through the two questions I would like to ask, so I really surprised, you speak very good English. I think you teach in Japan. I can tell your Japanese should be very good. Then your English is also very good. How can you do that?
Thank you. You can understand my poor English. Yeah. Yeah, we usually speak in Japanese, and now I have many Chinese students, so I also now speak Chinese, and at home I speak local language of China. So English not often used, I think.
Yeah. Very good, actually. So yeah, thank you very much. So two questions about your slides. The first one is about the concept you proposed in at the beginning of your talk. So you mentioned that the hydrogel could be the solid and the liquid at the same time. So yes. you mentioned, yeah, for the solid material, the stress could be transferred for the entire material quickly, and for the liquid material, maybe the strength is just a local effect. So how can you identify, that this should be kind of 0.5% of liquid, 0.5% of solid?
Maybe I did not explain clearly. Maybe I give you a misunderstanding. I meant that hydrogel is a solid when we see it in a macroscopic way, but it is a liquid when we see it in a microscopic way. When we see the gel in a scale comparable to its mesh size, which is 100 nanometers, in these scales, it's just like a liquid. So small molecules less than the mesh size can diffuse into the gel, just as if they diffuse in a liquid. So by that meaning, it is both a solid and a liquid. So yeah, for the same gel, it has a liquid property and also has a solid property. That is what I meant. Yeah.
I see. Thank you. Yeah. The second question is about the fatigue test. So in your material, when you do some fatigue test, fatigue loading, then you get the strength of this hydrogel higher and higher. So I'm just wondering, did you also observe the fracture in the hydrogel during this fatigue loading, or you cannot see any fracture in this material?
Yeah, in our experiment, we do not do only do the simple tensile test, do not do the fracture test or other mode. Do compression. Some of our students now are doing compression and other complicated deformation, but We do not measure the fracture like a pure shell, or not yet. Yes. Yeah, maybe it will be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, by the way, I should introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Li Qing from in an Institute of Global Physics in Paris, France. Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Nice
Thank
to
you for
see
your
you.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Constantino, next question.
Yes, thank you, Jian, for this very nice and very clear talk. I think emphasizing, I think also some of the important point of this self-strengthening. I have a couple of questions on the structure of the reconstructed gel, because there are some things that I find a little at least surprising. In the monomer feed, you have a lot of crosslinker, like almost equal amount of monomer and crosslinker, which if you try to make a gel with this composition, it will be a very strange, probably extremely brittle, very heterogeneous gel. So it's an unusual, I would say, composition. And this brings me to the real question, is that in the normal double network gel, of course, it's important to have a stiff phase and a soft phase, like polyacrylamide and pumps, but also the relative fraction of the two is quite important if you want the material to stay tough. Because if you have too much first network gel, then the gel is no longer very tough. But in this case, I think what is surprising to me is that you increase the stiffness quite a bit and the plateau stress, so suggesting that you have a much more first network in there, but you don't lose the toughness. So I'm wondering whether there is a limit. I mean, can you do this with any double network gel, or you need to start with a double network gel with a very low volume fraction of first network or low cross-linking? Because I'm surprised that you don't lose the toughness.
Yes, it's a very good question. Actually, we have very little information about the structures. So I think as long as we have the newly formed network is still have a high cross-linking density, it will sustain the load during deformations. And also, as long as the second network is still strong enough, we can see this tough effect even after the trainings. But it is strongly depend on the compositions. And Takahiro, I think he is a very, very thoughtful student. He know how to find a good condition to show this. But yeah.
But do you know
that we need to keep the balance? But I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think because as you see that after training, the sample increases its size. So at a certain levels, the second network are quite stretched. At that point, I think we may lose the toughness. So then how to solve this problem? In principle, I think we probably can induce a second network during training on purpose.
Okay, yeah. I think I agree. So the network swells during the polymerization. So that means the polymer concentration maybe doesn't really increase that much.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Can you, after the gel is reconstructed, can you analyze it to see how much first and second network is there after the reconstruction, or is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. We can measure the weight of the sample, dry sample, and see how this weight changes. The increase of the net weight is coming from the new polymers. So we can analyze this. Yeah.
Have you done it or?
Well, yeah, we have done this. Yeah. At the beginning, we've done this. The weight can be increased by around more than 10 weight%. So it's a huge. So at the beginning, increase. Yeah. So at the beginning, the weight, polymer weight fraction is about 12 in total. So after training, we can have more than 30, I think.
30, okay.
More than 30, a lot, huge amount.
A lot. So the volume fraction, so you are making a much more concentrated gel.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's it. That was my question.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this question.
Jian, you're next.
Okay. Hello. Yeah. Hello. Thank you, Professor Gong, for the excellent talk as always. So I'm Jian Li. I'm assistant professor from McGill University. First, I'd like to put a comment. I think it's very beautiful work because considering the generation of free radical in the biological system is considered bad, right? It will damage the cell and damage the tissue. But in the double network gel, actually, they do a lot of good. That's my first comment. And my question is following. The first question is about this extremely high efficiency. You have shown that, right? Just one free radical can polymer a lot of monomer. But I think we also know that, right? This free radical polymerization is very, especially for oxygen. So I just wonder how this kind of efficiency will preserve if you do those kind of experiment in the open air, and which you have like the oxygen.
Yes, exactly. Yes, your very good questions. At the first stage, we do this all in the argon atmosphere because of the oxygens. And now we are trying to overcome this problem to let the polymerization in open air. We also learn from the biological systems some enzymes and can remove the trapped oxygens, so that will let us to work in the open air. So we are doing this. And this is one aspect. Another one is actually when the mechanochemical is generated, if there's enough amount of monomer nearby, so it's a competition between the reaction with oxygen and reaction with the monomers. So even without any control in air, we still have somehow polymerization inside the gel, if the gel is thick enough. Only the surface layer are strongly influenced by the oxygen, but in the bulk of the gel, we still have a quite good polymerizations. So this is good, I think, to make the system more simple. Yeah. At first, we think this oxygen problem is very tough to get rid of, but now we think we can overcome this problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Also for the practical application. My second question is also regarding this kind of free radical. It's quite, I think it has been known the free radical is super reactive. And it can also attack the other kind of, for example, other polymer. I think that people using it for grafting. I just wonder. So is that this one is strong enough to grafting the polymer chain instead of like a monomer? So in this case, maybe you can bind with another long polymer chain, and in this case, you don't need to do this kind of step polymerization. You can do like, well, you don't do chain growth polymerization. You can do like step polymerization.
Yeah, so it's just like a step polymerization because this radical is not diffusive. It is fixed at the end of the broken polymer chains. So different from the initiators that are small molecules, it can diffuse out and diffuse anywhere and make a collision with other radicals and will disappear very easily. But in this case, this mechanochemical is fixed at the end of polymer chains. So only polymers only grows from these radicals.
Yeah. So my question is like, just consider in the case in the solution, you have long-term polymer, for example, like alginate. That's my favorite. So in this case, can this kind of free radical will link like the alginate chain, and then because this free radical is considered quite reactive. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's feasible.
I'm not sure if in the case of polymers, it can react with the monomers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's my
for chemists they can find a more good system to realize what you want to do. I'm not a chemist, so only very simple ones. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Professor Wei Hong, next.
Hi, Dr. Gong.
Hi.
Yeah. Constantino almost asked my question. So anyway, in one of your earlier work, you have shown that in your original recipe of double network gel, there's a composition dependence. And if you have too much of the first network, it turns into more of a brittle gel. There's a brittle ductile transition. I'm wondering if you have a similar effect here. Basically, if you exercise too much, would it become very brittle?
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Exercise too much, or we put too high concentrated monomers and crosslinkers. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Your previous answers to Dr. Constantino probably is similar.
Yes.
Yeah, and you also mentioned in the answer to previous under participate. So was about you haven't done any experiment about fracture, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I would imagine this strengthening would happen at the near the crack tip at the in a process zone, right? So this is more like, comparing to a biological system, it probably is more like a scar rather than strengthening of a muscle. So would that be of any practical or any special application, or
I'm not sure. First of all, at the crack tip, I think in order to strengthen the crack tip or stabilize the crack tip, we need some good conditions. And because the cross-linking reaction is relatively slow, it takes time. So I think it's less possible in our current situations when the crack tip propagates and then immediate from new network to resistance, the strength of the materials.
I see.
So I don't think it will work in such a way at the moment.
I see. So it wouldn't happen in real time. So
it takes time to.
One final comment. So is it possible to apply the similar mechanism in interfacial, let's say, adhesion, or because that would probably be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. So and
we are
stronger and stronger adhesion when you pour on it. That's probably more interesting, I think.
Yes, we are doing some.
You're doing some.
Not yet. Not in a systematic way.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right, Professor Sulin Zhang.
Hi, this is Sulin from Penn State. Thank you, Dr. Gong, for the wonderful talk.
Thank you.
So I'm studying mechanical biology. So at the time of your talk, I try to make a one-to-one comparison with your system, with the biological cells. It's very similar. And then I was about to ask this question. In cells, these monomers are diffusible, right? It's freely diffusible. And when you have this actomycins serves as a crosslinker and also as a stretcher to stretch the monomers and then the stress fibers, and that where how you assemble the stress fibers to sustain and transmit mechanical forces. I know that in cells, these monomers are recyclable. Okay.
Yes.
If you stretch it,
Yes.
They are assembled into stress fibers. If you compress it, they depolymerize.
Yes. Yes.
In your experiment, you show wonderfully that
Yes.
one direction, right? One direction.
Yes. Yes.
You polymerize it.
Yeah.
If you compress it, if you compress your sample, would you be able to depolymerize it as well?
No, not yet. So that's the as I mentioned at my last slide, that this is a new goal or challenge for us, how to find a system to decompose or depolymerize. As you mentioned that in the muscle system, we have actins. This actin form filament. And then on the compressing, this actin can become actin monomers, right? So it has some thread meetings of growth and decompose. And so that's biological system can do. So in our synthetic systems, if we can find a mechanism that can do to use monomer to polymerize and then use a mechanism to depolymerize and to back to monomer, that will be great, I think. Yeah, very good. I think very good comments from you. And yeah, that's what we are thinking about. Yeah.
Just a follow-up question. People actually put this actomyosin motor proteins into the synthetic system.
Yes.
To just stretch it to, the monomers, the motor proteins serves as a crosslinker and also a stretcher. Are you thinking about doing this as well? This is a hybrid of living and non-living material.
Yes. And actually, one of my former students is doing this. He now has an independent group. He's doing the actin-myosin system to try to control the polymerization and depolymerization, control the morphologies, and by hybrid with the synthetic polymers and also hybrid with DNAs. And yeah, he's doing toward this direction. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jian, you're next.
Thank you, Rong, and thank you, Professor Gong. Amazing talk.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. One is, do I understand correctly that when you add the monomers and crosslinkers into the material and with the radicals, then you form essentially a third interpenetrating network?
Yes.
Right. So then, following the same idea, you could add more network to the material as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, I guess my question is there a limit of doing that?
I think it should there's a limit. Yeah, but I don't know when the limit will be, because with the increase of cycles, the density of the current case, the density of the polymer increase, and that I think there should be a limit. If we can just depolymerize the polymers, then it may last for a long time or lot more cycles. Yeah, there's a limit, exactly.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself again. My name is Jian. I'm in University of Alberta in Canada. I actually also wanted to ask you, and this is a question that I have always been wanting to ask you about your seminal work almost 20 years ago on double network hydrogel. Basically, you created that double network hydrogel. It's a 1 + 1 > 2 scenario. I wanted to ask, what inspired you? What was the story behind the creation of that? Because it has been inspiring in the field.
at the very beginning of today's conversation, I is asked by Gang the same questions. I think it's a gift from God. So it's by chance. It's not on purpose. It's not designed in advance, I think. So I think this is also the very interesting part of the material science. So everything is so complicated. And if you can design a thing that that thing is not, usually not very, very great. If God give you something, that will be great. Yeah, because our understanding is so limited. So yeah, very limited. And knowledge and are quite limited, but there's a chance beyond our imagination, a lot of chance. So sometimes God give you, then you can work on it and enjoy it. I think.
Since their initial conversation, I forgot to record. This point is very interesting. Can you repeat some of the details?
How? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the actual discovery period was a fascinating story. I did not record in the beginning.
Oh, I think how the double network gel is made, it's just by a chance. So we work on polyelectrolyte gels at the very beginning, and the most large interest of us is a very fundamental property of polyelectrolyte. How it have the what is its conductivity, what is its surface tensions, what is the dielectric constant and relaxations, and how it's the cation relaxation coupled with the polymer chain dynamics, something like this. And later, we are also interested in the surface friction of hydrogels, because we think the cartridge has low frictions and the I-bond has low frictions. So the hydrogel also should have low frictions. And when we prepare hydrogel, we sometimes when I try to wash and we cannot hold it, it will escape from our hand and go to the sink sometimes. So and broken the gel. So we think, oh, the gel have a low friction. So we why not study how large the friction is? So later we think, oh, how to reduce the friction further. And then we try to put the linear polymer chains to reduce the friction, because for polymer scientists, you have experience, and when you have a polymer, some polymers at your hand, and with some wet water, you feel very low, very nice lubrications. So that means linear polymer chain might give you a very good lubrications. So then the question is, if we put this linear chain into hydrogels, and then under pressure, this polymer chain might be squeezed out and reduce friction. So that's the initial idea, try to do this. Then we try to polymerize the linear chain into a hydrogel. And by doing this, my student, at that time he was a master course student. Now he's my colleague, Dr. Takayuki Kurokawa. He's a very careful and thoughtful student. He said he found that by inducing the second linear chain, the gel somehow becomes stronger than before. Then he raised these problems, and some of the students said, okay, because you induce more chains, the density increases, so the gel becomes strong, so there's nothing interesting. Some students think in this way, but he think in a different way. He think it's interesting. So we also think it's interesting. There's something inside. So our initial assumption is that this linear chain might induce frictions between inside the gel, and this gives the viscoelastic energy dissipation, and this will increase the strength. That's our initial assumption. So then we think if this is true, then the strength of the gel should strongly depend on the velocity, depend on deformation velocities, if the viscosity is the issue. However, we found that the deformation velocity hardly influences the mechanical property. Then we realized this is a wrong explanation. It's not true. That's what's that. And at that time, we already observed the hysteresis, and not so quantitative. We just see by deform for several times, gel become a little bit soft. So at first we think, okay, that's bad. So that means the gel, after deformation becomes, the property becomes bad. So it's not good. So we did not think in a positive way. And later, so we think, okay, maybe the viscosity is not the issue. Maybe the inhomogeneity of the gel probably plays some role. So how to make a homogeneous first network gels? And if we make a homogeneous first network gels, maybe we can improve further the mechanical properties. Then we try to start to synthesize the first network from the linear polymer by post-crosslinking the network. This will give us a more homogeneous network, we think. So we try to use the gamma ray to post-crosslink the first network gel. And that's the work done by a postdoc from Korea, Dr. Na from Korea. And then he found that this gel, when stretching, it shows necking. This is a biggest surprise for us. So the necking, and because it shows necking, it shows a very large deformation and extensibility. And after necking becomes soft. So from that point of, that moment, we think that the internal fracture probably is very important. And at that time, Dr. Yoshimi Tanaka is already come to our laboratory because he's an expert of fracture mechanics. So he joined our group and we worked together. And he, at that time, we think probably because this internal fracture will dissipate energy, then increase the fracture resistance. And he started to build some theoretical model. And simultaneously, I met with Hugh Brown in a conference. And because he's an expert, so then he also make some model, theoretical model. So Tanaka and Hugh Brown independently build the quite similar model because from similar necking data, hysteresis data. So this is, I think, the beginning of the story. Yes, yeah.
Fascinating story. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
I can add that about that time when Hugh Brown was there, we started doing some experiments ourselves with gels, but the thinking was not completely clear about the fracture when we started doing experiments. I remember that the postdoc, he was actually a former student of Ken Shaw who came to work with me.
Oh yeah,
Weber. Rebecca Weber. So we received sample from Jianping's lab, and she was coming to me and say, it's not reproducible. I don't get, the stiffness is different for different sample. And she also noted that if you test the same sample, it gets softer, but she didn't really think much of it in the beginning. And then we started thinking maybe we should do systematic damage experiment. And that's when we started doing
so then
it was clear.
Constantine do quite, because Constantine is expert of this fracture mechanics. So in Constantine lab, the Webb, I think her name is called Webb.
Rebecca Weber,
Rebecca Weber, she's a postdoc in Constantine group, and then Constantine group do a quite systematic work on the loading, unloading, and he sees the hysteresis, right? And
yes.
yeah. But yeah, so unfortunately, you have a quite a limited sample. So you in your lab, you can only do the compression test. But the physics, yeah. But yeah. I think this is the first systematic work on the internal fracture by Konstantin's group.
Okay, our next question is from Professor Chan Hui.
Thank you, Professor Rong. Hi, Professor Gong. This is Chan Hui Yang from Southern University of Science and Technology in Shenzhen, China. I must say that I have been learning and getting inspirations from your excellent works from the very beginning of my research career. Thank you. And also thank you for the great talk today. I have two questions. The first one, a little bit similar to what Professor Wei Hong had just asked. You have shown that the gel keeps strengthening from cycle 2 to cycle 4 this training. So how many cycles does the strengthening effect last for your system, and how to optimize the ultimate properties?
We only do 3 to 4 cycles, and students have no patience to do more. Maybe we can do more, but only, yeah, unfortunately.
Do you expect any saturation for this strengthening effect if there is enough?
Yeah, I believe there will be saturations, but yeah, and yeah. So, but so I think the process inside the gel or what kind of new structure is formed is completely unknown yet. So there's a lot of work to optimize systems. And maybe we need the collaboration with the theoretists to analyze or modeling and try to understand more and give us experimentists the suitable condition to how to make it last for more cycles. Yes, yeah. Maybe your group, maybe you work with Professor Hong, if you can have some idea to do this.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. Yeah, my second question is, you have also shown that it could take up to 2 hours for the new network to form, but free radicals typically should not survive for such a long time, 2 hours. So what factors do you think that governs the long time of forming the new strengthening network?
I think at least we found the logical in our system can last for quite a long time, several hours. So that's also really surprising. So one possibility is probably this logical, because it is located at the end of the chains and has low probability to meet another free logicals. And so it has a long lifetimes probably. And also we are working in the argon atmosphere. And so this may be the reasons. Yeah, in air, probably the free logical will be have very short lifetime, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's really surprising, yes.
Okay, our next question is from Bingbing Yang. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Professor Gong. My name is Bingbing Yang from McGill University at Canada. And actually today I have a couple of questions. The first question is, how stable is the strengthening phenomenon? Do they have like a memory effect? Because the reason I ask this question is, we human being like myself, based on my personal experience, if I didn't work out for a while, my muscle strength lose. But the muscle has a memory. They can like reactivate once I redo the exercise. So do your science work, science paper have this kind of phenomenon?
No, these kind of gels are completely elastic ones. So there's no memory effect. But if we can combine with viscoelastic material or with induce some polymers with strong directions or with strong intermolecular interactions, and just like fibers to make orientations, maybe we can have some memory effect, I guess, but we never tried it. But it's a very interesting, topic, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question? Maybe two more. Another is a technical questions for the slides of time to strands. The slides of time strands. I noticed you do several loading, unloading tests. I'm not sure whether on the same sample or on different sample. Because if my question is, how do you control the second load, on the third load and the fourth load? I mean, on the same sample or on the different sample?
Different samples, similar sample but different samples. So we load the sample and then wait for certain times, and for different sample with different times. Then we do the second loading, see the recoveries.
Okay, but how do you control the sample deviation? Like, because hydrogel, I think it's not easy to control exactly the same performance on the different batch of samples. So,
in this case, we usually prepare the same batch of sample and cut, and for use the same batch of sample. In that case, usually we have quite good reproducibilities. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more? One last general question? Because I found your science paper is it's a typical bio-inspired project. So like can you give any comments for like a young scholar like us? Because we found that some ideas is actually indeed from nature observation, and then we design our project. But some others is actually based on the fact that we observe the experimental phenomena, and then we find a corresponding nature-inspired idea, and then write in, and then fit in our papers, and we call it bio-inspired projects. So can you comment on this kind of scientific logic?
I think usually it happens in a mutual way. Like we have some experiment observation, and we try to understand the meanings and try to find its impact. Then we think about biological systems, and from biological system, we also then design our new experiment based on the previous findings and try to verify or make this kind of general concept more convincing, like this. So it's not one way, usually in interactive ways. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
So next, Professor Anand Jakota.
Hi, Rong. Thanks. Hello, Jian. It was a beautiful talk.
Nice to see you again.
So the question I had has been raised by a bit by Jian and Constantino, so I'll ask it in a slightly different way. The difference between the open system and the closed system is very fascinating. And if I understand it correctly, one big difference is there's new mass coming into your sample. If we define our system as the solid sample, there's new mass coming in every cycle.
Yeah.
So that suggests to me that I think you showed data that the sample is growing every time.
Yes.
So does it execute any back pressure on the mass that's trying to come in, and will it self-limit? This, Jian asked a similar question. Or will it actually accelerate and go away? I can imagine it doing either one. Okay. So that was my question.
And in the current systems, the gel will swell because we use strong polyelectrolyte. So after synthesis, because of contact ion has high osmotic pressure, always it try to swell. If we choose, for example, neutron polymer, maybe the swell is not so large. Or if we choose polymer that after polymerization, it becomes globule, takes globule conformation, it might make the gel shrink. So it strongly depends on the chemical species we used. Yeah. So
Thank you very much.
maybe it's very interesting your questions. Maybe we can think about to design the contractions, use different monomers. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I should have introduced myself. I'm Anand Jagota from Lehigh University.
Yes. Yeah, I know you very well. We have collaboration through Harvard, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So
nice to see
you.
Professor Jimmy Xia. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, Jianping. Thank you very much
for
wonderful talk.
Thank you.
And really enjoyed it. And I also realized that if you wait long enough, the smart panelist would ask all the right questions. So certainly some of the questions that I wanted to ask have already been addressed. For example, this limitation or saturation of the training, that's already been addressed. To a certain degree, Anand actually asked the same question of open system versus closed system. Closed system, you reach the saturation much faster.
Yes.
For open system, eventually you will reach the saturation. If you do that, I guess eventually you can theoretically predict what is the saturation point. You can essentially somewhat calculate that. Okay, so that's not the question. The first question was answered. The second question I have is, in order for this training to occur or strengthening to occur, you have essentially three conditions. One, you have to break one polymer network.
Yes.
Second, you have to have monomer diffusion.
Yes.
Third condition is you have to have radical.
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, if I do the experiment, right now what you do is you stretch the sample and let the first network, let the fracture occur, so broken bonds occur for the first network. Then you go back to the original relaxed state. And you're hoping that during that, and hold it for a certain length of time, you're hoping that during that time, you would have the additional polymerization occur.
Yes.
Then you stretch again. Okay. Do the second training and so on. But if the three conditions are right, are all satisfied, you don't really need to go back to relax it, do you? You can stretch it and hold it at the stretch level. You would still have the polymerization.
Yes.
You can further stretch it, then you would see the stiffness of the material continue to increase as you stretch it instead.
Yes, very good point, I think. Thank you. Yes, in principle, if we will apply a step string to partially broken some of the bonds, some of the strands, then we might have the polymerizations. And if we wait enough long time that the cross-linking reaction occurs, then we already have the new network. And if we further increase the string, we have an additional breaking of the network. And this will induce additional network, new network formation. Yes, exactly. So
the so-called cyclic loading is not required.
Not required.
Stretching is required.
Stretching is required. Breaking of the bond is required. Yes. Once the bond is blacking, then it can initiate the polymerizations. No matter the sample is unloaded or still underloading. So
wonderful.
Also,
Wonderful.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Shaotin, Dr. Shaotin Lin, next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Rong. Thank you, Professor Jian Gong. A very nice talk. Actually, this has been a second time for me to join your talk. And my name is Shaotin. I'm a Shanghai student. I'm currently doing postdoc at MIT. So I'm really interested about actually mechanical radical polymerization, this mechanism. I'm interested in this power and potential to this using this as an experimental tool to probe, let's say, elasticity and the fracture of polymers. So from that point of view, I'm thinking, let's say you apply a mechanical force and some chain fractured and then form a new chain between these fracture chains. So if only this picture forms, then actually the sample actually, I feel the elasticity won't change too much, but become very stretchable, right? So, but I think in your current system probably may have another physical process is, as you mentioned, they may form the third or fourth network. So this actually, since you added the monomers, also added the crosslinkers.
Yes.
So my question is there a way, let's say, possible to decouple this process? So because this two actually something like eventually is coupled. So if there was something decoupled, then actually really something like a powerful tool to engineer this polymer architecture, then we can sometimes use it to understand the elasticity and the fracture. I really want to see your technical advice from this point of view.
You mean decouple the polymerization, a new polymer, and the cross-linking?
So I think there are two physical processes. The first one is only the fracture chain in between form a longer chain.
Yeah.
So that actually do not actually give the enhanced elasticity.
Yes. If without chemical cross-linking or small amount of chemical cross-linking, we have a very long polymer chains. So it will not contribute to the modulus or mechanical strength, as you mentioned. And however, if we put enough amount of chemical crosslinker, so it forms a dense network. So this dense network might act as a first network, brittle first network. And then this will also black on the deformations and then trigger the next polymerizations like this. So because the polymerization and cross-link reaction is completely random in our systems, and we do not know how many % of the network are densely cross-linked. And maybe some % of them are quite loosely crossing. This loosely crossing chain, like a second network, can also make contributions. So we cannot separate at the moment. Maybe theoretical work can make some models to separate, to estimate, or control. The architecture. Very, very nice.
Thank you. I think this can be very interesting. Experimental tools.
Exactly. Yes.
So Junsu is up next. But before the question, I just want to note to the panelists that it's almost midnight in Japan. So we have 6 more questions lined up. So Professor Gong, do you have a kind of a time?
Okay, I'm okay. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So next is Junsu.
Hi, Professor Gong. I'm Junsu. I'm fourth year graduate students in Professor Jian Shou's group. This is the first time to hear your talks, even though I read your paper over and over. So this talk was so interesting and very clear to understand.
Thank you very much.
So so my first question is about the radicals. So when we generate radicals, this radical is binded, so it is not mobile. It is locally mobile, but it cannot get out from the gel. So that limits the second polymer or multiple polymerization. It is within the gel. It cannot go out from the gel. So maybe if we can generate free radicals of the small molecule that can diffuse out of the gel, might be useful, for example, for the wound healing, because it can grow from the surface more than current system. So is this possible to generate small radicals from the mechano-radical reaction?
I don't know. I have no answer. It's an interesting idea, but maybe ask a chemist to realize this. Yes, yeah. To my limited knowledge, I have no idea how to realize this. Yes, yeah.
Okay,
anyways, it's very interesting. But there's some idea that to encapsulate some radicals in small capsules, and then under mechanical deformation to rupture these capsules and release the radicals, and this radical can diffuse out and heal the material. There's some work around this line, yes.
Thank you. Let me ask a second question. Your talk inspires me a lot. So this is kind of similar question. Some ideas I want to hear from you, some comments. So hydrogel works are quite focused on the biological applications, for example, cartilage. And maybe this kind of work can improve the durability of the artificial cartilage. But we cannot apply the vinyl monomers in our cartilage. Usually it is toxic. So can the radicals polymerize some proteins in our body?
Protein polymerization.
As a monomer.
Monomer, amino acid polymerized not by radicals. So they polymerize polymerize in different chemistries. So to incorporate such kind of mechanisms in synthetic system might be interesting. I see. So there's a huge amount of work, I think, for chemists and material scientists can do by collaborating with each other.
Thank you. So let me ask the last question. It's kind of general. So I know that your group is kind of huge group. I visited your homepage. There were a number of people were there. And I think this work is not just a one topic you have. So as a young researcher like me, so I'm always concerning where should I go using this kind of background on hydrogel. What should I go to the next? So would you share your vision how we can go further?
That's what we are always thinking about. Personally, I'm very interested in, as shown in this work, interested into how to mimic the biological systems, and also use this kind of dynamic system or non-closed system, open system, or non-equilibrium system. Because up to now, most of the work are based on the equilibrium system. So to build some system, use hydrogel that mimic a biological system based on the non-equilibrium process, I think is very fascinating for me personally. Although maybe there's no practical use at the moment, but because we have the privilege to work in the university, do whatever we want, so we can do what we like. We can freely choose the topic. So that's a privilege. So you can choose what you like. So
thank you for your advice.
A non-equilibrium system is fascinating.
Thank you.
Professor Jian from in Zhejiang University.
Thank you, Rong. Thanks, Professor Gong, for the wonderful talk. This is Zheng Jia from Zhejiang University. Actually, I have several questions, but for the interest of time, I'll only ask one very quick question. So in your paper, you showed the gels become stronger and stiffer over several cyclic tensile cycles. So my question is the size and length of the material of the gel also increase during the growing process? Yes. And how about stretchability of the material? Because the strength increases over cycles. How about the stretchability?
As you can see in our loading, the second loading curves, for if we choose a good proper monomer and the crosslinker conditions, we can keep the similar stretchability as the virgin DN gel, almost compatible. But we cannot increase the stretchability than the virgin gel. So at the moment, yeah. I think the stretchability probably is determined by the second network. And what we are introducing is the new first network somehow, close to the new first network, yeah. So there's a lot of things to improve, to increase the stretchability, for example, by induce the new second network. Probably we can do this. Yes, very good question, I think.
Okay, thank you. And how about the size and length of the
yes,
material?
The length increase. Length increase. It depends on what kind of chemistry we use. If we use the polyelectrolyte, the length increase a lot. Yeah.
Okay. And how about other dimensions like the thickness and width of the sample?
The length, mainly the length increase. The thickness width is slightly increased, not so much as I remember. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jinda, you're next.
Hello, Professor Gong. This is Jingda from Xi'an Jiaotong University. So I met you before in Xi'an. So my question is, this self-strengthening effect seems universal. Have you ever used this principle to other tough hydrogels?
We use different chemistry, and it seems it also works. Yes, double network gels with different chemistry. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The second question is similar to Salting's question. So the new from polymer chains is stress-free. So so what's the origin of strengthening effect of this hydrogel?
Yes, when the new network is formed, it is stress-free. But if we deform this gel again, it bears stress, right? It deforms. So if we have a relatively high cross-linker linking density, so it bears a lot of load, I think. That's why we see the strengthening. We have the higher modulus than the previous one, yes.
Okay, so I have a general question. So because my colleague Hu Jian is your student, so we are very good friends. Yeah, we know something about your group from him. So when your students propose a project to you, a good idea to you, so how do you formulate your research and do the paper? So I know your papers are always done for a long time, 1 or 2 years. So
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we are very slow. I'm not efficient person. So it takes a very long time. My students sometimes they lose the patience. I say, okay, if you cannot wait, maybe you can publish by yourself. And I will not sign my name. So that's I see. So sometimes we now doing this way. Because when I'm a co-author, I had to take responsibility. So I work very carefully and many times, and sometimes students complain. Yeah.
But every of your paper is very solid, very solid.
Takes time.
Yeah, so Zhigang.
Hey, Jianping, thank you so much for giving this talk, and also for staying so long. Do you want to have a cup of water or coffee? Oh, no.
It's okay. I have water. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have your water. So I have two quite a general question inspired by your talk. I haven't never personally met God myself, but I feel I'm talking to a person who has. All right. So anyway, now towards your talk, end of your talk, you mentioned depolymerization.
Yeah.
Of course, are interested in depolymerization in recent years. Some people said first 100 years of polymer science is about a polymerization. Next 100 years would be depolymerization.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
world has the biggest problem. One of the biggest problem about a polymer pollution. I just want to pick your brain. In general, how do you think about this problem of a depolymerization, or help people to solve, contribute way to
it's very hard. I think polymerization, especially for the logical polymerizations, it's the polymerized state is very, very stable energetically. So to depolymerize the polymers, it's energetically unfavorable. So I think one possibility is coupling with mechanical stress and some enzyme. Maybe we have a chance to depolymerize. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So,
So
but
it's a
so you answer the very specific strategy, but in general, if so, we also have quite a few brilliant researchers, very active researcher in our field. So at some point, I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years, many of us will begin to make serious contribution to the solution of this next problem.
Yes.
Polymer,
depolymerization.
Plastic.
Yeah. Microplastics. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but in general, you must have enormous group, and also you always think 10 years ahead of many of us. So what are you thinking about in general at this moment?
Actually, we have several collaborators try to tackle these problems with theoreticians and chemists, and we are polymer scientists. And but I think it's not easy. Try to find some solutions. Yeah, we are tackling these problems. Yeah.
Okay.
In our university. Yeah. Okay. So maybe 10 years. Maybe 10 years work. 10 years work.
We'll get together again to talk about this. So I have a more technical question, but it's also general. I see Croton is here. I also want to get his take, and also Herbert. He is a king of polymer mechanics. I learned most things from these two guys. But my general question is the following: inspired by your work, or this first 203 work, many of us are engaged in the field, or started this to do research in this field of fracture of soft material, elastomer and hydrogel. So I think because of you, we all work on toughness of hydrogel, meaning the fracture energy, the energy needed to grow a crack. But many of us also know the strength is very important. Your first paper is actually about strength. Strength in polymer system is a very good material properties as well.
Yes.
It happened to be very low, the fracture strength, even your tough gel. Very low compared to theoretical strength. Now, here's the general question, not necessarily just you, it's also Croton and also great Herbert. Here's my question. I ask many times, many people don't get good answer. So in the literature, there's a falsehood about this strength. Because we all were misled by Griffith. Griffith said, oh, you have a low strength, very easy, because you have a flaw, a crack like a flaw. And if you test glass, it's indeed true, because your strength is a high statistical variable, because the flaw size is variable. But when we test the elastomer and your hydrogel and other people's hydrogel, the strength is a very stable property, as stable as toughness, as stable as modulus. It cannot be due to random flaw or flaw in some totally different sense other than Griffith. Now guys, can you all chip in to illuminate this problem? Because ultimately, most people really just care about strength. Because for tough materials, the toughness is no longer an issue for engineering application or biological application. It's all about the strength. So guys, Jian, I'll start with you. You are the person who got us into this trouble.
Maybe I think Constantino and Herbert more suitable to answer these questions, but yes. From my, I think
direct question
to have a stable strength, I think you need a high toughness. That's from my experience. So if without a higher toughness, then the strength is very random, because material is brittle. Then it's just I just learned from the Griffiths theory. So yeah. So that and
Jian, so, of all the materials you have worked with, you mostly focus on materials with high toughness. But have you seen materials with unusually high strength that we should pay attention?
Maybe in future, yeah. So, but we are interested in materials both have a high strength and toughness. So if it's too soft, actually, the application range is quite limited. So with a relative high modulus, high strength, and high toughness. Yeah, that's we are very lucky to start with the polyelectrolyte, because with such a low polymer density, we have such a high strength. Our modulus is because of this pre-stretching of the network, because polymer chain is close to the stretching limit extensibility. So the polymer chain is in a very stiff range. So that's why we observe a high modulus with a low polymer densities. Yeah.
I can say something to Jian, because I know, I mean, this question of strength and toughness. I think what's missing from the discussion is the nature of the singularity. So if you have a very sharp singularity, then toughness has a lot of meaning, because if you have energy dissipation, it really helps if you have a sharp singularity. And some soft material do have that, particularly double network hydrogels. But then if you have a lot of blunting, and if the singularity is very weak at the crack tip, then I think strength pretty much means the same as toughness. But it's not general. I mean, it really, when you're saying that strength is a material property, I worked a lot with the Michelin rubbers, and definitely it's not. I mean, there is a very large dispersion in strength and much less in toughness. So I think this is a question I've always wanted to ask you, because in your paper, you are doing the classic paper about the strength and toughness that you wrote, which is really a very nice paper. But the data comes from VHB, and VHB is a very viscoelastic material which is used for adhesion, And in these kind of material, you have mechanism to blunt the tip. So that type of material, strength and toughness, I mean, there's no difference, and you could use strength. You don't have to do toughness for that type of material. But if you have materials that have no mechanism to blunt the singularity at the crack tip, then I think Griffith's approach is better. But the confusion is that it's not general. I mean, you cannot, for any given gel or rubber, say strength is better or toughness is better. It really depends on what happens at the crack tip. And this is tricky because you would need to make some measurements if you want to do that. At least DIC. I think DIC at the crack tip really should be more common. That's my opinion, though.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Rong, can I respond to that? So thank you, Costantino. As I said, I learned the most about the polymer from two people, you and Herbert.
Very flattering, but I learned about mechanics.
Incidentally, Costantino, also your brilliant paper, recent paper, we all love about. You show this, scission of a chain.
Yes. Yeah, that was the topic of the webinar that I gave a couple of months ago, I think.
Yeah. Now about your the strength and the toughness. So we recently wrote a paper. I try to get opinion about this as well. So, but the key thing, as far as we can tell, is the following: you do two types of experiments, classical. One is you cut a long crack and measure toughness, the energy needed to grow that crack. That's one experiment. Griffiths taught us to do that experiment, right? Another experiment is before Griffith. There's no crack, and you measure your strength. For glass, it's hopeless. The strength is all over the place. It's not a material property. But for quite a few materials, it's a good property. For example, for metals, it's a very good property. We measure yield strength, we report ultimate tensile strength. Nobody even bothered to talk about the toughness for many, many decades, right? And also for Jian gel, it's a very good material property. And also for polyacrylamide gel, very good property. So now what we learned is the following. It seemed to be general. You do these two experiments. From crack, you measure toughness. That's a joule per meter squared. And from this no crack experiment, you measure a work of fracture, meaning the energy under stress strain curve. That is a joule per meter cube. So if these two things are both material properties, of course, the ratio is also material property. And that ratio is a length. For glass, that length is 1 nanometer. Hopeless. For polyacrylamide, without any reinforcement, is 1 millimeter. For Jian gel, it is about not quite 1 millimeter, but close, 100 micron or so. For classical natural rubber, it's 50 micron. So that seems to explain. If your floor size, natural floor size, is beyond this length, then you really need to have a Griffith. If your floor size is smaller, for polyacrylamide is 1 millimeter, then toughness is not relevant to you. So that seems to be the number. So I just want to collect experience if other people have similar experience.
Yeah, I think I would need to have collected evidence. I mean, the right experiment, you're absolutely right. You would like to introduce a flaw, a small flaw, and see whether it makes a difference or not. And indeed, and see whether this is general for a wider variety of soft material. I don't dispute the idea. I mean, I think I'm not completely convinced. I mean, the reproducibility. For example, if you have cavitation, you also have no flaw. But if you try to use any kind of fracture mechanics argument, you get a length which is not possible to exist in the material. So somehow there is a mechanism missing about this critical length, because it's the natural flaw size is much smaller than the critical length you get from this approach.
Yeah.
And so the deterministic part, I think somehow the material is able to create its own defects, and this mechanism we're still missing.
Yeah, it's missing. Yes.
Yeah.
Herbert, so can you say something? You are the man who has an opinion about.
I can see Herbert in his cellar.
Yeah, Herbert, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I mean, both of your reasonings are perfectly reasonable. I mean, I don't see, I agree with Constantino's thinking. I mean, just think of fiber reinforced composites, right? I mean, your work and many other people's work have shown that, if you can blunt the crack, you increase the low transfer distance, you make the materials tough, and then it doesn't decrease the strength by that much, right? Now, on the other hand, I mean, what you said is also correct. I mean, there are evidence, I recently wrote a paper with Ron and others, indicating this length scale is a reasonable one. But I also agree with Constantino. I mean, a lot of it has to do with geometry, ultimately, right? I mean, you can design, it's not a material property in some sense, right? Because you can design the correct geometry, right, to counteract the material property. That's what mechanics is all about, right? Okay, right? It's in geometry. So, I think both of you is correct in some respect. So I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So I will ask Gong questions. Even for double network gels, and even for those samples that show necking, and we found the largest extensibility sometimes different from sample to sample. It's now, the initial curve is overlap with each other perfectly. Until the yielding at a certain level of necking, but from sample to sample there are large variations. So if the workout extension is a material constant, it seems to me workout extension is not a material constant in this case in what we are working. So then we have trouble to estimate this length scale of fracture energy divided by W. So, so according to your explanation, maybe your explanation suggests that we have a very large defect somehow in our system, right?
Yeah, this also confuses me. I don't have a clear answer. I guess from a practical point of view, is what people want have a material is how much load this material can carry, right? Griffiths answered that question for glass, and we all follow that. But we know metal doesn't work that way, right? For example, metal has a very well-defined yield strength and quite well-defined ultimate strength. We kind of understand what is going on. Now, for certain plastic and also some of your tough gel, where you have a drawing, I guess in plastic it's called a drawing, right? Neck and propagating neck. That is quite different from glass and metal. It's separate. So I guess a more practical question is the following. Suppose I want to help, or you're our leader, want to design material to have a high strength. Then looking at a high toughness itself is barking on the wrong tree, right? It's only one tree. Ultimately, we need to have high strength. So what should we do? So we're not actually looking as diligently on this question as toughness. This is collectively we publish less papers on toughness. So for example, Constantino was talking about this intrinsic flaw. What is that intrinsic flaw? What is the experimental procedure to greatly amplify this intrinsic flaw? Yeah, we don't have the study. That's a question, really, or want to get people's experience, or whether this is really a question we don't know the answer.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Jian, yeah, sorry. Yeah, a little bit comment about Jianping's previous comment about the original double network gel. I think that it's a slightly different story, because for double network gel, the ultimate fracture, at the time of ultimate fracture, the gel is already very brittle because the first network is already gone. And if you regard that gel as a material, it's a brittle material, so it's not that tough. It's going to be flaw sensitive. Not only that, because of the fragmentation of the first network, that will create a lot of defects in there already. So that probably can explain the disperse in terms of final strength or extensibility. Just my understanding. Yeah. So yeah, but other tough gels might have a difference, I guess. Yeah.
So Gong, sorry to interrupt. Just mention about Griffiths, right? So, as you know, Griffiths, the fracture mechanics approach does not works very well at all in composites. Okay. I mean, if you take a fiber reinforced composite system, very, very rarely designers use fracture mechanics approach. I mean, any reasonable designer, if you want to design the pressure vessel for, to store oxygen, I mean, you'll be crazy to use fracture mechanics. Yeah. And in some sense, Gong's gel and is a molecular composite, right? I mean, you have. It's very similar to a matrix fiber system.
Yep.
So when you talk about fiber, when you really want to do safety factors and things like this in pressure vessels, you really need to understand statistics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, without knowing the statistics and the way that you make the geometry, that's where everything is. I mean, you can't. And I think that's the key to design high strength and high toughness materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Gong has shown us a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But there could be many other ways. I'm not a chemist. I don't know how to do any of this.
Yeah.
So, but I think if you look back at the development of fracture mechanics, you're absolutely right. I mean, we start with brittle materials, but out comes this composite stuff, and a lot of the theory is really based on statistics, and those are the ones that really the designers use.
Mm-hmm.
Can I make a point related to that one? This is Anand Jagota. So sure. I think there's some role. I want to cite something that Budiansky once said many years ago in the context of fiber composites, and he pointed to the role of statistical variation. He said, imagine that you make a fiber composite and your manufacturing process is slightly random, so you have flaws all over the place. You do some tests in it, your crack doesn't break, fibers don't break at the crack plane, they break far away from the crack plane, there's lots of pull out, and you have a very tough material. Next year, you improve your manufacturing processes, and all the fibers are identical, the glass matrix is identical, and you think your properties will improve, but your properties go down. Because the crack runs, there's no statistical variation, all the damage accumulates at a single crack and it breaks. So I've always thought that this had a role to play, like Herbert was saying, even in the double network gels. A single flaw should not be fatal, and for that not to be fatal, there has to be statistical variation. So I wonder if there's a role for statistical variation in properties. Just following up on Herbert's idea in this question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have some comment about announce comments. At first, we also think that the statistical variation of the first network might is the reason for the toughness of the gel. So then we try to use the homogeneous first network. So Dr. Sakai in the University of Tokyo, he invented the tetrapeg gel that is much more homogeneous than the logical polymerization gels. So we use that gel, and we also found a similar double network effect. So this modified our thinking that at least for relatively homogeneous gel, first network, we still get a similar phenomena. But of course, even for the relatively homogeneous first network, the polymer chain takes Gaussian conformation, so it still contains statistics probably. Maybe this intrinsic statistics is important probably. I'm not sure. But at least even without large defects, with a relatively homogeneous chain length, and we get a similar effect. Yeah.
I guess it's getting very late for Professor Gong. We have 3 more questions, and Professor Tun Zhang, and Professor Tun Li, and Professor Xuanhe Chao. So I guess we'll start with Tun.
Hi, Professor Gong, and this is Teng Zhang from Syracuse University. And I joined late and missed your talk, but I read a lot of papers and really learned a lot. So my question is related about the stress state during training. And so you may talk about in the lecture, but so from your last talk, so last few slides, the training stress state mostly is uniaxial. So
yes,
I was thinking that whether you think it's beneficial to do multi-axial stress training or even gradient stress. Maybe you can band a thin sheet to form, and you have gradient mechanical property, and maybe you can also modify other functions.
Yes, yes. If we have the gradient bendings, we have gradual structure. That's what we are doing now. For biaxial deformations, we do not do very systematic ones. We just make compressions. So it's have a biaxial effect. We do something like this, and for very systematic biaxial stretching, not yet, because we do not have this very good equipment to do this. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, very nice comment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor Tun Li.
When you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I think
you cannot hear you.
Yeah, we cannot hear. I guess maybe your microphone set up.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Professor Gong. This is Teng Li from University of Maryland.
Nice to see you.
And nice to see you again. So last time we met, I think it's in a soft matter workshop in SUSTech a couple of years ago. Thank you for this wonderful talk and for accepting Jian's invitation. So
thank you.
You are actually one of the first scientists from Japan as a speaker in the EML webinar. My question is in this way. Indeed, you, if I understand it correctly, you have been in Japan in the scientific research for more than 3 decades. first for your PhD,
Yes,
and
yes,
being
yes.
on the faculty there for almost 3 decades, and you know the research community landscape in Japan inside out, and also won major research award there. As in today's webinar, quite a few times I heard people talking about the people read your many good papers and learn a lot, but probably it's the very first time to listen to a talk. And for me, it's the second time, first time in person, this time in through webinar. I think this might be something of general interest. For example, maybe I'm less knowledge, but the research landscape, how the research community operate in Japan is somewhat less familiar to me in comparison with other places. I know this might be open-ended. Let me try to frame my question more targeted or specific. So, for example, from time to time, I read this excellent paper written by Japanese researchers or researchers in Japan. And I would like to have some collaboration with people there. So do you have any suggestions or advice in terms of the, when you try to initiate a collaboration, it's better to know where they come from and what they go for, right? So the funding mechanism, the research landscape. So that part of the story is somewhat less familiar to me. So do you have any suggestion? I guess that another side of the story is there were several questions today is asking about, for example, younger researchers as a postdoc or looking for a postdoc or a PhD program. What should they know about the research programs in Japan? I guess in the last several years, the research landscape globally has been changing. People are looking around for opportunities everywhere. So I think if you can provide some information along this line, might be beneficial for both.
Frankly speaking, I'm not familiar with the mechanics people in Japan. So I belong totally to the different community. In Japan, we belong to the polymer communities. So polymer chemistry and polymer physics. And so, and only include our groups, only there are maybe 2 or 3 groups in Japan do the hydrogel mechanics or soft matter mechanics. And they are doing excellent work, I think. And if you want to make a contact with them, maybe like invite them to give a seminar in this webinar would be a very good initiations and to know people's and know each other's. Yeah. Also for the fundings, for postdoc fundings, there's a GSPS organization that support the postdocs. Every year there are 2 chances to apply the postdoc positions through the host professor in Japan. So the young people contact with professors in Japan, and if the professor agreed to take them, then the professor will apply the positions. So that's the system, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Wei spent some time in Japan as well. Probably Wei knows a little bit better than definitely much better than me. So that I guess that's something I'm curious about. Thank you very much.
So I can probably say just a couple words. Given that I grew up in the American system and now I'm working in the Japanese system. There's actually really a lot you could say about it. I think one just very quick thing that you can say that's very different, right, is in Japan we have the umbrella system. So I'm an assistant professor and I work with Professor Gong, right? And obviously in the US system, if you're an assistant professor, you're running the lab by yourself, right? You have to start, basically you're thrown in the deep end of the pool and you have to swim on your own. So, there's there's benefits to both sides. I think from a pure comfort point of view, I mean, the Japanese system is very nice. I mean, especially from what I've experienced, right? Like as a young researcher, I was 27 when I started as assistant professor, and, you know, being able to work for someone like Professor Gong and having all of the people in the group who already know the equipment, all of the equipment's there, all the research, all the knowledge through the past is there. You know, that's really an incredible opportunity to walk into, to be able to not have to figure all of this out yourself. So from a mentorship point of view, it's invaluable, right? To be able to have that opportunity. On the other hand, you also have to realize that, you know, especially if you're young and you're ambitious, you know, you're joining a team, right? You have to, you can't be selfish about how the research is being done, right? You need to be able to share and work with others. So maybe for, you know, I knew people in the US, you know, who kind of view themselves as kind of young, hotshot researchers. And for them, it might be hard to come to a place like Japan where, you know, even if you have the greatest idea in the entire world, if you're 27, you're not going to get $2 million funding because you're not that person, right? It's not your place to apply for that kind of money. So I think that's at least one thing to keep in mind. I think ultimately, you know, if you look at the development, you know, 4 years later, probably in the Japanese system, you learn a lot more. You can pick up a lot more information. There's years of knowledge and you have really strong mentorship. In the US, you probably know how to write a grant better after 4 years because you have to do it. You know, you've probably written 75 grants in those first 4 years. Whereas we have a once a year, basically, grant cycle. But I think there's really benefits to both sides. Those would be just my 2 points quickly to throw out.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing. Yeah, go ahead, Jian.
Ken, thank you very much for this webinar happen. Because I have been trying to get Jian to give us EML webinar from the very beginning. She has been saying no until I find a way to get in, working through Dan. Thank you, Dan, for making this happening.
Yeah, so Daniel, thank you for offering, and also Jian for offering this first-hand information. As I just asked, actually, I heard from multiple people told me the similar thing like Daniel just shared, but I feel that's something less familiar for many people about the system in Japan. I mean, that's the beauty of a EML webinar. That's you learn from people, and thank you, Jian, for your persistency to get Jian here, and also like Daniel and others. I mean, I apologize for this.
I apologize for the
excellent learning opportunity for us, for everyone. Yeah, thank you very much.
Last question from Professor Xuanhe Zhao.
Hey, Jian.
Hi, Xuanhe.
How are you?
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Very good. So thank you so much for another wonderful talk, as always, truly impressive. And I also want to thank Jian, Dan, and all the organizers who make this happen. Truly appreciate. I want to invite Jian to MIT to give talk as well. But eventually, this happens in a magic way, really. Now, my question. So since it's getting late. The question, so today we discuss about the discovery of double network gels. Now, I was actually even more impressed by Jian's persistence in one field. All the way from the very beginning of friction of gels, and then to double network tough gels, ionic tough gels, and then this most recent fantastic strengthening of self-growing gels. Now, Jian, the question is this: when you were, probably junior professor at that time, why did you choose this area of gels or hydrogels, and then why, you can really dig deeper and deeper in this area, really open many avenues for so many researchers to join this field. So that's my question. I think this will be helpful for other junior colleagues as well, like me.
As I thank you for your questions, Jian. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, and when Zuka asked me the questions, and I entered the gel field is also by chance, because I work with Professor Osada. He is working on another topic, and simultaneously he also work on gel. So then before joined his group, I did not know anything about gels. But when I see my lab members doing working on gels, I feel I'm more fit to this topic because I can see it, I can feel it, I can deform these materials. And also the experimental period is relatively short. So because I'm not a very patient people, so if I have something want to know, I want to experiment, I want to know the result outcome immediately. So this gel like this, so that's why I think this field is a fit to me. And at the same time, because I come from China, I plan to go back to China. So I think the hydrogel research is less less expensive. So at that time, 30 years ago, when I go back to China, I think I can continue research on hydrogels instead of high TC superconductors. Because for my PhD studies, I work on high TC superconductors. We need a molecular epitaxy with very fancy equipment. And at that time, that research is very hot and very hot topic. But I think in China, when I return back to China, it's not possible to do such kind of research, and it's very expensive. So when I got invitation from Professor Osada to join his group, work on hydrogel, I'm very happy to accept his invitation, and I started the gel research. And another question, why I do
you resist that temptation from so many other hot topics over the years, really dig very deep in this field.
I have no ability to do other things, I think. If I'm very, very smart and capable, maybe I can do this and can do that, then I can do a lot of things. I can only do this thing, so that's why I still continue to do this. Maybe in US, it's not allowed because of fundings. You need every time to have some new topic. But in Japan, we can do this. I think this is also a kind of Japanese style. Many professors for his whole life, he only work on one topic, very deep.
And
so,
I want to relate that to so many Nobel Prizes, especially recently in Japan. If you look at those professors, many of them focus on one topic.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, so eventually. Yeah, it's not. It's quite normal, I think. This is also important. So yeah, you just concentrate on your own topic, on what you like. It is allowed, possible to do, and still you can get fundings. That's the good part, I think, in Japanese system. I'm not sure how long it will. This kind of situation can continue. Maybe it will change. It is starting changing probably. Yeah.
So
thank you so much.
As a continuation of Shanghe's question, so Jianping, in the beginning you said hydrogel is a godsend. Maybe that's true, maybe not true, I don't know. Yeah. But what we see that what you did afterwards, that was a brilliant researcher that has nothing to do with God. You ask one question after another outside your comfort zone. You didn't know toughness, but yet you find a person who can teach you about toughness, right? And after after other questions of the ionic thing. So maybe can you say a little bit more, not in the abstract term, just the process you actually go from start with this godsend material and ask a scientific question, do a scientific experiment, and lead a lot of us to this point. That's quite just remarkable.
I think it's quite normal. I think just by curiosity, ask why, then it came out like this. And also, I learned a lot from Dr. Yoshimi Tanaka, who is an expert on fractures. And when I give lectures in Paris, so that lecture, I think, originally arranged by my former student, Tetsuharu Narita. And he arranged a talk for me in ESPCI. So at that seminar, I met with Constantino. So that's the starting point. We have collaboration. So I learned a lot from Constantino. And also in Paris, I met the Hugh Brown and also Ken Shaw. And also through Constantino, I know Herbert. This human network all come from, I think the initiator from the Tetsuharu, in Paris, So, through collaboration and interaction with them, I learned a lot.
Yeah, I just want to add Tetsuharu is on the panel. And okay, so I guess it's getting very late in Japan. So I really appreciate Professor Gong's time and efforts, considering this is midnight and you must be really tiring. So Zhigang
thank you, Rong. Thank you, Rong, and thank Zhigang and all the members, and stay late at the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Jian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.